seconds after I ended my live stream tonight, we actually got real news here. It looks like Brandon Aiyuk may not be a Pittsburgh Steeler after all. It looks like he may be going to New England. He may be going to Cleveland. Let's talk about what just broke. So NBC 49ers put out breaking. The Niners have the framework of a Brandon Aiyuk trade with both the Browns and the Patriots. Now it's up to Aiyuk to decide if he will accept either team's contract terms. Now, a little more in terms of the details of this. Obviously, we have just been told time and time again, yeah, he's going to Washington. Yeah, he's going to Pittsburgh. We've been dealing about this nonsense all offseason. The Niners have negotiated the framework of trades that would send wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk to the Cleveland Browns or New England Patriots. They previously gave Aiyuk permission to negotiate potential contracts with the Browns, Patriots, Washington, and Pittsburgh. The Commanders have removed themselves from trade talks for Aiyuk, and the Steelers effectively no longer are an option after they declined to meet the Niners' trade demands. The Browns and Patriots have given their best offers to Aiyuk's camp while also presenting trade proposals that the Niners have accepted. The Patriots are expected to include former 49ers wide receiver Kendrick Bourne as part of the deal if Aiyuk were to accept New England's offer. The Browns would be in a position to add Aiyuk if wide receiver Amari Cooper were sent to the Niners as a part of this trade. If Aiyuk ultimately declines to agree to a multi-year contract with the Browns or Patriots, it remains a possibility he could remain with the Niners. However, Aiyuk and the Niners haven't engaged in substantive contract talks for months. He remains tied to the Niners on a rookie deal that is scheduled to pay him $14.1 million this season. Now, just when you think it's all done, just when you think, yeah, you're only really looking at Cleveland or New England as the possibilities, all of a sudden, the Twitter account that I've been following for my Brandon Aiyuk news, the Twitter account I've been following all offseason because he seems to break things quicker than anybody else. Yes, this little dog with the Niners hat on it. Ricky says he's going to be a Steeler. To the people calling me a fraud, it's going to make it so much sweeter when I'm right. Hashtag trust Ricky. And if you've trusted Ricky so far this offseason, he really hasn't led you astray too often. So he's standing by the fact that Aiyuk still may be a Steeler, whereas if I look at pretty much any other mark across any source, it all points to Aiyuk's going to be either a Brown, Aiyuk is going to be a New England Patriot. So let's talk about what this potentially means for those two situations. One, we've already discussed at length. If Brandon Aiyuk is dealt away from San Francisco, you are going to get a massive bump up for George Kittle. You are going to get a massive bump up for Deebo Samuel. You are going to get a bump up for Sticky Ricky, aka Ricky Pearsall. Looking over at the potential landing spots that Brandon Aiyuk were to have, if Aiyuk goes over to New England, it really doesn't impact anything from a fantasy football perspective. It's not like there are high expectations with Jalen Polk. It's not like Demario Douglas is getting anybody excited. If Aiyuk were to go to New England, really, it's just going to help out Drake May a ton, both in the early portion of his career and also for years to come. So if Aiyuk were to go to New England, what's really funny right now is the Niners are currently projected to be the highest scoring offense in the NFL this year if you look at sportsbooks, whereas the Patriots are projected to be the lowest scoring offense in the NFL. So Aiyuk would go from a team that has a ton of weapons, where his target share probably can't get over 22, 23% just because you have Deebo, you have Kittle, you have McCaffrey, and you have another guy they just took in round one, to you go to a team that really you are just the alpha, you are the best weapon by a mile, and you're going to get force-fed targets, but you go from the best offense in the league to the worst offense in the league, and you are still hurt in fantasy football based off what all the data tells us about wide receivers and bad offenses versus good offenses. So if Aiyuk gets dealt to New England, well, yes, you may have some people coming out and telling you that because he has less target competition, this does not hurt him. They are wrong. Brandon Aiyuk going to the New England Patriots would hurt him, and I would move him down my rankings if that were to happen this year. Now, of course, if you want my rankings, you can find those on flockfantasy.com, or if you use code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, top in a draft with me, where I'll be drafting every single night till the season starts, and use code FLOCK, you're going to get my updated rankings and updated draft guide every Sunday till the start of the year, and I'd imagine we're going to have to update those relatively soon. Also, with code FLOCK, you would get hooked up with a special Christian McCaffrey pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. And with code FLOCK, you get a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. You do need to be in one of these states, though, if you want to take advantage of that. But let's go over and let's look at the possibility of Brandon Aiyuk going over to Cleveland. Because like I said, it's very clear cut and dry. And also Kendrick Bourne going over to San Francisco may help the Niners. I don't really think it impacts Debo. I don't think it impacts Kittle. Probably hurts Ricky Pearsall just a bit because obviously you'd rather him just immediately project to be the wide receiver 2 in the offense, which probably wouldn't happen if Kendrick Bourne went over. But if Aiyuk now goes over to Cleveland, what this is going to do is this is going to hurt. I don't know, because if you send Amari away, right? You have Amari going over to the Niners. He gets an offensive improvement, but he has more target competition, and he's switching teams halfway through training camp. Not great. I know it hurts Jerry Jeudy for a fact, but Amari Cooper goes from what should be an average offense to what should be an elite offense. He has additional target competition. I'm for sure not moving Amari down my rankings. I don't know how much we can move him up, just because I think really what would happen is Debo and Kittle get funneled in that scenario. Aiyuk going over to Cleveland, it would be a much better situation than Pittsburgh. It would be a much better situation than what you would have with New England. The Cleveland Browns currently at least project to be an average NFL offense this next year. We've at least seen Deshaun Watson be a great NFL quarterback, even if it was, essentially 2 decades ago at this point. It did happen once upon a time. So Aiyuk going over to Cleveland, I don't know what it would do if Amari were to get traded as well. Because if Amari gets dealt as well, you are dominating the targets there. You have to compete with Njoku. You have to compete with Jeudy. You have the running game. It is a worse offense. I would probably move Aiyuk down my rankings still, but Cleveland would for sure be a much better situation to land in than what you should have in New England this year. I'm a big fan of Drake May for the long term. Just if you look at projections for this season, with the overall lack of talent that this Patriots offense has, it'd be very difficult to assume that this offense has much upside. It obviously would be much better if you get Aiyuk going over. Whatever quarterback gets Brandon Aiyuk gets an upgrade. If Deshaun Watson gets Brandon Aiyuk over Amari Cooper, you should be more excited about Deshaun Watson in drafts this year. You'd move David Njoku down just because Aiyuk profiles to see a higher target share in Cleveland than Amari Cooper would. You could make an argument that the running backs are potentially, I've heard some people say, oh, the running backs will be better. They'll face lighter boxes. Aiyuk can be a field stretcher and stretch NFL defenses. You also have the argument, if Aiyuk comes over, they're maybe going to run the ball a little bit less. Maybe Aiyuk has a higher red zone target share than what Amari would. So I think all in all, the running backs probably are unaffected in either situation. Actually, unaffected in Cleveland, because if you go from Amari to Aiyuk, I don't know how much better the Browns' offense becomes. If Aiyuk does go to New England, however, if he goes to the Patriots, it's such an upgrade from Kendrick Bourne to Brandon Aiyuk that I think you assume that the offense has to get better, and I think that does help Ramondre Stevenson. So all in all, Debo Samuel, Kittle, they are positively impacted no matter what from an Aiyuk deal. Sticky Ricky, aka Ricky Pearsall, he benefits more from Aiyuk being sent to New England if they're only sending Kendrick Bourne back. It really doesn't help him much if Aiyuk's sent to Cleveland and they send Amari in return. Amari, I don't know how we're going to move him in our rankings just yet. Aiyuk would be hit in a big time negative way going to New England. Cleveland, I can't say you'd move down too much. If Deshaun Watson gets him, be a lot more excited about Deshaun. If Drake May gets him, be a lot more excited about Drake May. If he goes over to New England, I do think it makes the offense not the worst in the NFL, and it probably bumps up Ramondre Stevenson in general. But I think that's all we have for the reporting that we are currently looking at. Like I said, it is really up in the air. This is the most up-to-date information. And honestly, it probably looks like Aiyuk's going to be either a Brown or a Patriot this year, even if that's not the exciting outcome that we are looking for. But appreciate you. Much love. I'll be updating our draft guide, of course, once this happens. I will also be updating you with fantasy football drafts every single night till the season starts. So just make sure you subscribe, and we'll be live tomorrow night. But really appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope we get a draft with you tomorrow night.